Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BT's Fly Tying Friday. Tonight, Alan Kuhre is going to tell us about backcountry fishing from a kayak, and that includes one of the things that I really want to know about, those baby tarpon that are from 3 to 30 pounds. And the weekly tip isn't going to be a tip at all. It's going to be all of you showing and telling your Halloween flies. Hi there, we're the BTs from Boise, Idaho. And to get into tonight's program with Alan, let me introduce him. Alan Kuhre retired and moved to Naples, Florida in 2001. He quickly became a passionate saltwater fly fisherman after joining the local fly fishing club, the Backcountry Fly Fishers. That was in 2003. Over the years, his preferred method of pursuing juvenile tarpon, along with snook and redfish, is by kayak. Alan's regular club and DIY fly fishing trips to the Bahamas and Florida Keys have been on hold since the pandemic. He now spends most of his time focusing on fishing remote ponds and creeks. The locations are endless, from Sanibel and Matlacha up north in Lee County down to the Everglades in southern Collier County. By the way, these remote areas are perfect for 3 to 30 pound tarpon, something Gretchen and I are very interested in. So, Alan, without further ado, the presentation is all yours.
This is my first fly, which will show a little bit better. It's called the light bulb, but let me hold this up for you all so you can just go ahead and copy that with a screen save or what have you, as Al mentioned. And as I tie the fly, I'll be describing the materials and my choices and maybe some rationale behind it. Second fly, this bait fish pattern, kind of mullet colors. And again, the recipe or materials list for that right here. I'll give you a few more seconds on that to take a photo. And the first fly I'm going to tie is that light bulb, the first one, and it's my favorite tarpon fly. Again, it's this guy here. I'm going to switch cameras because we're going to zoom in a little bit. So, and again, this is a light bulb, and for juvenile tarpon, they're the little fish that grow up to a couple 100 pounds, and they spend their early years up in the backcountry, the brackish water, and they eat a lot of bait fish, a lot of shrimp, and they can tolerate pretty much very little oxygen in the water. So what they do when they grow up and how you find them is they'll roll. And they come to the surface, gulp some air. You can either hear them or see them. And they're usually in schools. And if you see a rolling fish, generally if there's a few more, they'll roll, within a few seconds of that first fish. So that's your time to get ready to cast a fly. The way they're structured, they've got, these are like fish that are 5 pounds to 30 pounds. Their eyes are set up on their head, and they're like snook in that they're looking up above, and they love to get under something and then just open wide and inhale them. And they're pretty aggressive on that hook or on the eat, and they're a fantastic fish to have on the fly rod. And I'll use a 6 to 8 weight rod. Generally, I'm throwing a 6-7 weight with a 25 to 40 pound bite tippet, depending on a lot of conditions. But you can get by on a 25 pound if there's not a lot of structure and where you don't have to really pull real hard on that fish. But other times they'll surprise you and cut through. So you need a stout hook. And I'm rotating this. You can see pretty big eye on this Gamakatsu 12S. This is a number 2, and it's good for about a 15 pound or less fish. And so to start out on that light bulb, we're just going to start a thread base, and that's Danville 210 flat wax nylon. And when you're wrapping, you're not just wrapping, but you're putting pressure. You're going to you'll see that hook moving a little bit, bending. Get my glasses on so I can There we go. I'm going to do a thread wrap to the bend of the hook, work my way forward, and we're going to tie in some eyes. Get rid of this tag end here. And for simplicity tonight, I'm going to use some black mono eyes. And I like the large size. Wapsi makes them. Just make a little more of a base here. And you just figure eight these on here. It's little plastic eyes. I reposition this hook in a little bit, but what I like to do too is kind of get them to come above the hook. Well, not that far. I say these things are a tad on the fragile side. Let's see if we can. You may wonder what that piece of cardboard's doing right here on the hook. It's because these are, they're a big game hook, but the finish is tin plated. And with salt water, the jaws of this Dyna King have a tendency to scratch or cut through the hook. And so you only get really 1 day of use out of it if you don't protect the finish of that hook. They rust up, and I just don't like using a rusted hook. Okay. Now what I start out with is I got a lot of stacked deer hair, bucktail. If you can see that here, that's quite a bit. What I'm going to do is break it into 2 sections. We'll lay down an initial section here, and I like to get it about the length of the hook shank and have it come right up to the eyes. So the body's pretty much all about the same. I'm putting a little tension on this. You want to hold it in place. Now, on a natural bucktail, the fibers near the tip of the tail are more solid than the ones you'll find in other areas, or as you go towards the body of the animal or the butt area. Those are the ones you want to use for spinning. But this way I can put a fair amount of pressure. These are basically solid fibers, and they don't flare out, you know. So this looks pretty good. And then on that recipe card, there's a lot of things you can put to create a little flash in that tail. I'm going to use some of this crystal flash in a pearl color. I'm going to grab about a dozen strands or so and add that to the tail, kind of where the lateral line might extend. And these, you want them to go about the length of the bucktail, maybe just a skosh shorter. But again, it's not, closer you get it, the better, but it's not critical if you're a little shorter, a little long. See how that stands up there? I want to bring that thread back, gently wrap. So that's laying down. Then we'll add that second piece of bucktail, or section, I should say. This is going to be just a little bit short of the eyes. Again, it's okay. Ideally, I'd want it to reach just like the first layer, right up to the eyes. But that little step there isn't going to be a problem, as we're going to palmer some material here. What we're going to go with next is called the, palmer chenille. I don't know if you can. That's 239 Flies, a shop up in Bonita Springs, and we got Mangrove Outfitters in Naples. But kind of an interesting material. When I use this, go about 6 times around the fly. And what it does is creates a nice little collar, and it helps to keep the bucktail as well as that crystal flash from falling on the hook bend when you're casting. So had a piece out, so I'm just going to cut one. Just bear with me here. I want to show you this stuff. It's kind of different than a lot of materials. It's kind of got the stuff coming on just one side. Tie it in. Again, under pressure. I'm just going to bring the thread forward, get it out of the way. And we're just going to palmer this, use a little liquid or a little water to kind of guide this stuff back. There we go. And these are touching wraps, even overlapping wraps at this point. But you're starting to get a nice flared cone-shaped collar there in the mid body. I think it might sort of simulate that dorsal fin, maybe some pec fins on the bait fish. I'll just wrap this back, shorten that bit, and we'll tie it off. Okay. And I don't use really any adhesives or glue. Some, especially redfish, in my experience, although others think it's not a problem, a lot of these fish are searching for food in cloudy water a lot of times. It's not always clear water. So they really smell stuff. And a lot of these, like cyanoacrylates, super glues, some of these resins, I mean, if we can smell them, the fish can really smell them. And if you're, other than snook or tarpon, which really just, you know, they don't sip flies, they just suck them in and they charge from a distance. But redfish, sheep's head, things like that, if you have a fly with these funky materials on there, I've had a lot of refusals. So I just try to make sure I'm putting good tension, stretching this thread as I'm applying materials, and it seems to hold everything together. Okay, our final material is this Estas Grande. This is made by Spirit River, 30 millimeter. This is long enough for several flies, but it's a real bushy material, which is what you want. You can tie this fly, a lot less material in the tail, maybe a few less wraps here, and it's not going to land as soft. And with this stout hook, I want this fly to land as soft as possible. A lot of times you find the tarpon in the backcountry, and if you have a little wind that day, they're almost always along a shoreline that's protected, usually by mangroves. And it's flat, calm, glass-like water. If your fly line hits or you have a big plop with that fly, those fish don't care for it. You got to move on or wait 10, 15 minutes for another try. So tying this thing on the bushy side and using these materials, you'll get a nice, almost feather-like landing. That may be an exaggeration, but pretty darn close to it. And I give a little, make sure I give this a good tug as well, and I just tie this off in front of the eyes. About 4 wraps under tension and let the thread hang, and that's not going anywhere. I'm just trying to get some of these fibers, the longer ends, out of the way, kind of pull things back and just form a head here. I don't use a weed guard on tarpon flies. Redfish flies, that's a different story. But I mean, you're going to find these fish in the open. Sometimes they're out under mangroves. And it's, if you don't ever throw one into the mangrove, you're really not fishing or getting close to where the fish are. So sometimes you got to go out there, and looks like we got a couple here. Again, this is more for my, but this one I think's got our basic. And then from back to forward, as we know, just whip finish. And I like to put the tip here in the eye of the hook, pull forward, pull back on the thread. With this 210 denier, you can put about 5 pounds of pressure before it parts. So it's ideal for a lot of saltwater patterns. And again, you're going to see how bushy this fly is. That's what you want. You got
That
the
is
collar
beautiful.
area,
That is beautiful, Alan.
and that's the light bulb. And
Any questions out there? We don't see anything in the chat. Well, Alan, why don't you pass that over to me, and I'll tie a leader onto it so that we can swim it a little bit later.
all righty, let me.
I'm
All
going
right.
to ask a question. A lot of these flies, they put a little bit of red, they look like the gills. Do you
Yes.
ever do that?
I have done that. And I have the materials. It's a real nice material. I forget the name of it, but Mangrove Outfitters, the guy that developed this pattern, Tom Shadley, would add a pinkish, about 20 strands under there to do just like as you mentioned. And they do an all synthetic. They don't use any bucktail
Okay.
in their pattern. But if you go on their website, Mangrove Outfitters, in the light bulb, they'll sell you a kit for about 35 to 40 bucks. You can tie probably at least 10 flies.
You
Appreciate
can
it.
pass that one right through the camera, right in front of your vise there, if you want to. Put it right.
That's where it went.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, what I'll do with this is I'll tie a leader on it so that we can run it in the pool a little bit later. You can go with your next fly now.
It's no fancy name. It's just the EP baitfish fly. And I'll hold that up again there for you to see. And I'd like to describe a couple things about this fly. Puglisi had some original fibers, gray and white, but this Sculptifly, a newer material, has some built-in flash, iridescent, That's the same fly. See that? I don't know. Do you see the blue and the?
Oh, yeah.
That just kind of has.
It's really
sparkle all
got
through
nice
it.
eyes. These game change eyes that
Yeah.
they came out with. And I want you to just take a little note of the profile. From more ahead in, you can see the eyes from the front. And it's kind of thinned out at the top, little wide at the midsection where the hook is. And then down below it, it kind of thins. That's the profile you try to create. After you add all the materials, then you go in with a pair of scissors. So I just wanted to show you this. I just love this material. Just has so much life built into it. So we'll switch back and we'll get a hook in the vise. And again, I'm going to use the flat wax nylon. And this is the 1/0 in that Gamakatsu SL, or the 12S, SL12S. And this is a fairly stout hook. I would feel very comfortable with a 30, 40-pound tarpon on this and fighting it pretty aggressively, keeping it out of the structure and stuff with this hook without it bending or opening up. One of my favorite hooks prior to using this was the Gamakatsu B10S Stinger. Very sharp, very large gap and lightweight, great for a gurgler pattern or a topwater foam pattern. Because it's so lightweight and a big gap, it seems to work real well. I'm going to just go back and forth a bit up front here to create a little wider. That should do for the base. These are the game change eyeballs. Probably just see my fingers and not much else, but There's a stalk between the two connecting the eyes that's plastic, and it's fairly fragile. You could hog down with this thread and even separate it. I get it in place. I'll show you a little trick that I found that helped the longevity, because these things are about 75 cents an eye retail. So I kind of get it in place where I want it. And I'm going to add a little bit of super glue. Oh, that's right. You're facing the wrong way. Yeah, some Loctite gel. I put a dab of that right in between, right on my thread wrap, like so. And then I'm going to gently wrap the thread completely over that connecting stalk. Grab a little bit of that wrap to the eye and back. I find this seems to, at least in my mind, seems to strengthen the eyes.
You're adding rebar to the concrete is what it looks to me like.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. Got thread to about the bend of the hook. And what I want to do is add that lateral line effect. The last time we used some crystal flash. This is extra large Palmer chenille, pearl. I think you can see that. Got that double thread. And I'll grab about 2 dozen of these fibers and we'll just tie that in. A little bit of glue on the fingers. That's
Oh, up there, yeah.
It's done.
Who makes that?
the chenille. That's a good question. I always get at the shop and it's in a, they package it themselves. They get bulk supplies, I believe.
It looks like that stuff called bait fish emulator. We get out the best.
There's a lot of places online you can buy it. I just did a query on it on Palmer chenille, and there's about 6 or 8 places that show up real quick.
Okay, thank you. But that's about the length of the fly. I'm going to be adding gray on top, white on the bottom of that Sculpta-Fly that I showed you earlier. This good stuff. So since I want the kind of the midline of the fish or the part near the shank of the hook, the first batch of the gray on top and the white or sand on the bottom, it's going to be a little bulkier. I'm going to grab a little more material. I want this to go right to behind the eyeballs, so I need to trim a little bit off. Got a little too much. But again, if it's too long, it's really no problem. You can trim it, but this helps. You just don't want to be short. Do a loose wrap or two, and then you touching wraps forward right to behind those game change eyes. And come back just before the bend, and I'm going to invert the hook and we'll do the sand next. This little cardboard does get in the way when I put that in there. So what I do, and I'll show you here, I'll use a bodkin or a little spatula. I'm going to separate the next piece. I'm going to switch cameras for the second round just to, I'm curious what, from your perspective, what works better. Again, I want this to go just about to the eyes. Careful of that hook point. It will, when you're under tension, that thread has no chance. Okay, let's just switch cameras. You're going to get a little closer view. That might be a better close-up. I wanted to show you the materials, and that other camera gave a better opportunity to share that. Okay, so we're ready for our next bit of gray. And again, it's less than what I added the first time. And I say these materials, the Sculptify or even the regular Puglisi, what I did, I wanted to show you, was create a little V there. Hope you can see that. Split the material so it can go around on either side of the hook more easily. And that way that cardboard protective sleeve doesn't get in the way. Okay. So that's pretty much the tail section there. What I do next is there's two more brushes, and both of these have a metal core. See if, just show you the label. Shrimp dub in gray, Puglisi. Get about a half dozen of them for $10+. Here's one here out of the, but there's a little metal core there right in the center. You got this synthetic material on each side. I like to cut about between 1/4 and 1/2 inch off the wire. Grab it and bend it to make a U. Go ahead and tie this in. I'm going to do about 4 or 5 wraps, keep them pretty tight. And then we'll finish up with a minnow head, which is a similar, it's gray, it's very similar. It's just a lot bushier and it's got a fair amount of flash in the fly. So again, just palmering. If you find yourself catching a lot of materials, I don't see that happening tonight, but I have these little, I don't know if they're hair clips, whatever. You can hold that stuff from getting in the way. Let's do another wrap, maybe 2. And this makes a nice transition from that Sculptify tail material to our finished product. That's enough there. There we go. And it's always good to rub your finger under there, use a fingernail. Then I wrap forward. A lot of these fibers get caught on each other, so you can gently use a bodkin or a toothbrush. It's a good time now to gain access to the shrimp dub material because you're going to go now with a much thicker Palmer material, which is the minnow head. And this is 1.5 inches diameter, but it's a lot bushier. Here's some of the material here as it comes out of the package. It's got a little nice flash in it. So on this one, I'm going to do probably 2 wraps behind the eyes towards the tail, and then come up over the eyes and over that stalk and try to get a couple wraps in front and tie it off. Sometimes you think you don't have enough room. It's like watching some of these incredible tires pack in so much deer hair spinning, but the more you can get in there up front. Now you'll see also the wire is a little long. It's extending right to the front, but I've got it turned around and it's fine to be right on top like that. You can go. And I want to bring my thread about halfway, a little less between the eyes and the eye of the hook. So it's ready there to capture after a few wraps here. Let's see if we can get a couple here behind the eyes. I'm a little crowded tonight, but I think it's going to work. There's 1, 2. And the next one I'm going to, from underneath, Gonna come up, still pull that. And now I'm ready to go in front of the eyes. I'm going to do 2 wraps. And I really like these hooks that there's still room to capture the material as well as to form a nice thread base there to whip finish off. The fact that you have a real large hook eye, you'll still be able to get your leader in there just fine. So I get my wire cutters. There we go. Try to, I think we'll be all right. If you wrap loosely and then get a couple layer wraps, then you can hog down on it, because those loose wraps will grab some of the fibers and cover up the point of that wire core. And believe it or not, there's a nice fly underneath all that. We're just got to find it. We'll get it with the scissors. That's a real bushy fly that with a heavy hook, it's gonna ride high in the water column, land real soft. So we'll just have the eyes showing there already on that side. So it's time to take it out of the vise. That's kind of what we got right now. You look at it, it's got potential. So I'm going to switch over to the other cameras. You can see me a little better. One of the first things I'll do is take the toothbrush and the counter, which the vise is sitting on, lay the fly down and just brush it out. So that's a little off camera. I apologize for that. Do one side, flip the other, and you can get me out of the way here. I'm going to just trim this here. Where that lateral line is, that's kind of your start. So I just and just a tad different angle when I do the ventral surface. I don't want to cut above the bottom of the hook. I want to stay, let me see if I keep in focus here. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, I think it's a little more gradual slope here on the ventral.
Yeah, your hook point is showing up beautiful through that material.
Cool. You can, yeah. Little cramp there. That's pretty much the profile. I'm going to shorten her just a skosh. And then as I mentioned before, you don't want it real thick at the top. You want it kind of, so I'm just going to take a peek here, looking from this angle. Now the head looks real, kind of blunt here down below. We're going to trim that. And I think you can see that. You can use the eyes as a guide. You don't want to be cutting into the eyes, but kind of want it to thin in this direction. And similarly on the top, there's not too much to do there. Like a lot of these patterns where you're trimming, you're kind of, you can get carried away a little bit and you wind up going too far and then you're out of luck. But I'm just going to take a little bit more off this bottom. Usually I have the dorsal or front, and I want to streamline that just a skosh more. All right. I think you all get the idea. You want a pattern like so, and there you got it. As far as how I fish it, with tarpon, redfish, you want to lead those guys a bit. This fly will land real soft, so you could throw this, a foot or two in front of them, and they'll a lot of times they'll just jump on it if they're kind of like in a laid up position. But generally, these guys are swimming or moving a little bit in a school, rolling along. So you want to lead them a bit. And depending how you tie your fly, if it's super bushy, it's going to take a while for it to start to sink. And, so then you want to lead the fish a little more, or bring a pair of scissors with you and trim it just a skosh. But for the most part, I just lead it. And as far as the stripping, some people will do these little micro strips, little strip, maybe move it a couple inches. I find that, yeah, you'll get an eat, but it's so hard to then, these fish don't suck on the fly very long. And if you got these micro strips, oh yeah, there's some resistance. Then you go to set the hook, you're a little late to the game. I find, and it was a guy down in Boca Pila in Mexico showed me this. We just had an incredible day, 2 days in a row where we got slammed, well, super grand slams, tarpon, permit, bonefish and snook. But the snook and tarpon, he says, I want you to strip that as fast as you can. And, not with a rod under the arm, but just make the cast into the mangroves and strip long strips, 2.5, 3 foot strips real fast. And these fish would charge out of the mangroves and just pounce on the flies. And I've taken that back to Southwest Florida and try stripping like that, and it works really good. And it does two things. Fish hate to see a little fly running away from them, and they'll just go after it. And the other thing it does is while you're stripping like that, you are setting the hook at the same time. And these guys inhale it. So to that question, how do I move the fly or strip it? I prefer rather aggressive strikes. And when they hit it, they're hooked up. Thanks for the question.
George is asking, do you fish it with a floating line, and what length and test is your leader?
I make my own leaders, butt sections 40, then I go down to 30, 25, 20, and I'll go back to 25 for the little fish. The length's probably 11.5 to 12 feet. If it's windy, I'll knock it down to about a 10.5 foot leader. If I'm fishing for seeing a little bigger fish or going with the larger pattern like this one on a 1/0, I'll probably be throwing 30-pound bite tippet at the end. And I know IGFA has a 12-inch limit on that length, but I'm just fishing for, I don't want to be making a new leader every fish, because they abrade the heck out of your fluorocarbon even. So I'll have about 20 to 24 inches of bite tippet, and that usually gives me 3 good fish before I need to change the fly. And so I don't know but you need, I think, a good, especially you find these juvenile tarpon that are in calm, flat water, an 8.5, 9 foot leader is way too short. But if you're throwing a 6-7 weight, you can get away with about a 10 foot leader. If you're going 8 weight, you better be close to a 12 foot, because they just don't tolerate a lot of surface, unless you're extremely delicate with that fly line. But it's a floating, weight forward floating line. A newer line that's come out by Airflow, it's probably my favorite, is their Flats Tactical. I think it's a 100-foot line, just tremendous and smooth. They have a lot of these textured lines that they're noisy when you're stripping them on your rod, but if you ever go into a swimming pool and have someone cast that line and you have the fly near you, when they're stripping, you can hear that noise. It's pretty darn loud and kind of weird. So I like the smooth lines as far as fishing, in calm conditions.
Ray and Sherry ask, what knot do you use to tie this fly on?
I perfection loop. Occasionally I use the basic uni knot. But if 25 pound, I'll do a 5-turn uni knot. But perfection loop, I like that loop because I can adjust the size of the loop, make it fairly small, maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. And that knot seems to work really well for me. Doesn't take long to tie. The fish, like I say, or Al mentioned, I do a lot of this out of the kayak. Occasionally I'll wade, but without flats like you have down in the Keys, or, it's kind of soft, kind of sticky. It's hard to keep your balance as well as be quiet. You're better off just going super slow in the kayak or in a small skiff and just take your time, be real stealthy. These fish get pressured a lot. There's a lot of jet ski tours. There's a lot of, except for in the national park, but Al, you got her swimming in the tank.
Alan, what kayak do you use?
I've got several. I like Jackson, Kuhre. It's like a 12-foot boat. I put a torpedo on the back of it, but I spend 80%, 90% of my time in my old Walden Kuhre, built up in New England, discontinued model. It's a real simple sit on top. I just use a graphite shaft paddle with wooden blades, super quiet, very lightweight. And that's my preference. It's allows me to really get into some, I'm kissing my knees a lot of times, pulling my way through these mangrove tunnels. And you can't do it with these, like the Hobie Outback and my Jackson that have the stadium seats in them. They're just too big.
Georgia asks, what is the best time to fish, AM or PM?
They say in the winter months when the water's cool that, the afternoon's good, and it can be. Right after a cold front, the snook aren't going to be real happy. If you have 2 days of a northwest wind, the water gets down into the upper 60s or mid 60s, you got to target redfish. And then in the winter months, our low tides are very low. They're negative tides in the winter months. And the reds are happy, the sheep's head are happy, and the sight fishing, tailing reds and stuff on the mud flats are ideal. But some of the fish like tarpon and snook that may want a little warmer day, you can get them in the afternoon. Absolutely.
Dutch Bauman's giving you a thumbs up. And there's some others. I just can't see them all on screen. Good
Thank
job.
you so much,
I really love the way you set your cameras up. That over the shoulder camera really adds a dimension for you. So I say thumbs up to that.
Thank you. Al, those C100s, I had those webcams for $30 and they're back in Amazon shelves. These things are fantastic. Being able to.
We're very pleased for $185. They're the best thing going for the type of live streaming and zooming that we do.
Yeah, totally agree. Very pleased with them and glad to.
Thank you for the testimonial, and you're not the only one. There's several other people have added the cameras. Anyway, moving on now to the tip of the week, which we don't have a tip of the week. As a matter of fact, we're all going to show our Halloween fly, show and tell. And we're going to start with Gretchen showing her fly. And in fact, I've got it mounted in the vise right now. We'll go to that, and you can tell us about your fly. And what is that, Gretchen?
Supposed to be a bat. I don't know how much it looks like a bat, but that was as close as I could come.
That's nice.
I just love it.
Very good.
Put a little red in his eye.
Oh, wow.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's got 3 or 4 colors. The eyes are bloodshot.
It's a vampire bat. It is blood.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah,
really
I really liked it. I'm going to wait and share my fly at the last. That's I'm kind of ashamed. I don't really have a fly, but back to us now. It's your turn. And I know that John Wright has one to share with us, and then we will go from there. And
Oh, my gosh.
What is it?
John, you can explain to us what we're looking at now.
This is what I call the pumpkin hairy-legged's. Oh shoot, I can't think of the name of it.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, there you
There
go.
Oh my gosh.
It's a gurgler, just a hairy-legged gurgler.
Okay, gorgeous fly.
Well, it's a little bit embarrassing. I called this the trick or treat. And actually, after tying on this hackle, it's blue-eared pheasant, I had a Snickers bar tied on for the body and an extended body, but I ate them all, so I'm terribly sorry.
That's funny.
Oh, my phone's ringing, but I'm downstairs.
Anybody else?
Sandy,
Sandy,
There you
so
are.
this came out of my gifted fly box. I hope it wasn't one from the Beaties.
Yeah, it is.
So I don't know what it is, but this is the You Light Up My Life fly, because you have to put it on with light up rings and the fish just eat it right up. I mean, get your pumpkins, put it in the water, slam. What is the fly, Gretchen and Al, that you gave me?
That's a fluttering stone, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a LaFontaine fluttering stone.
Okay, thank you for that gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We didn't know we were tying a Halloween fly at the time.
oh, look,
See?
Sandy, thank you, Sandy. Anybody else? Okay. So the Colorado Fly Tyers Guild. I don't know who that is, but you're coming up
Sherry
next.
Steele.
Sherry Steele.
Okay, that's got it. Okay, here we go. Just a minute. Spotlight for everyone. There you go, Sherry.
Ooh.
Oh, cool.
Hey, you've
Yeah.
even got wild lights on it, don't you?
I
Lit
do.
Below.
look at
I
that.
love that,
Yeah,
Sherry.
well,
What do we have?
We have my first
Wow.
attempt at working with trimming deer hair. And this pumpkin fly was tied in Boise, Idaho, when we were there at the show, I think maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I've always loved it because I was sitting next to a tire that was so good at trimming deer hair that I said, I really want to learn how to do that. And so I have bonded with the curved razor blade.
Yeah.
And I'm quite thrilled with this. And this really looks like a Halloween-y type fly. So I thought I'd share it.
Sherry,
Yeah.
thank you so much. That's gorgeous. And by the way, your curved razor blade is doing well for you. Just be careful. There you go, Jack.
That might work.
We don't do Halloween.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
I should have called Gretchen because I'm not very creative. So I just went with a leech pattern with, some orange and black colors.
All right.
Love that. Thank you, Jack. Okay, Ray and Sherry are got something up here. Just a minute. Spotlight. Okay, Ray and Sherry, you've got the spotlight. I don't see a fly. Oh, there it is. Oh, I love it. I love it. Good job.
Okay, so
There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Love it. And what do we have there, Sherry?
I don't know. It just has the colors of Halloween.
That's a good fly. I don't know is a good name for it.
Here, I'll
Thank you so much, guys.
now out here,
yes.
we have the tarpon and the redfish, but we have a lot of tuna, more tuna every year.
Wow.
Okay, so I had to tie something, and I went and I picked up my junk box that I throw everything in. And this is what I came up with. Where is it?
Oh, my
Oh
gosh.
my God. That's like nightmare. Oh my God.
Oh,
What a fly. Woo.
That's my
Oh my God, the nightmare on Fly Street.
Yeah, man. It's got,
Yeah.
got zonker and eyes and about 6 legs on one side and 2 on the other.
Oh, dear.
Oh my God. Ray, that is wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I got half of one and then my Norvise decided to quit. So,
Half of one sounds good to me, Rick.
okay, let's see if I can get it to where you can see it. And
Oh,
it's going to be
yeah.
articulated with a popper head on it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, my Norvise decided to go belly up today, but I got it fixed now. So I'll finish this one though. I'll post it on the Norvise site.
Okay,
Probably tomorrow.
we'll be looking for it.
Right
Okay.
now, it's a zombie fly because the zombies got to it before you could finish.
Exactly.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, I like that.
Very nice.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a trout streamer, and Gretchen's fly is the bat fly. This one we're going to call the bot fly for Buckner on trout. So, and I'll move it around so you can see what we did is we put a little black on the top there, and of course it's made to travel in the water column with the hook point up. And as heavily weighted as it is, we're going to be probably getting down into some of the pools on the Salmon and Snake Rivers pretty deep with this guy. So we're looking forward to using it.
If you find out that fly works, let me know. I'd like to get a copy of it to try it for Montana.
Yeah, it's we have every confidence in it. It's I like everything about it. And
I don't know that it'd work on the Locksaw, though. I think we need to be in the Salmon River where we were this year.
need to be a little bit heavier water, I think.
Yeah.
I think probably a good alternative would be to tie it with bead chain eyes instead of the heavily weighted eyes, like I had there. So anyway,
Al, you might take a look at the Seifert minnow. It's a Charlie Seifert pattern. It's just like that. It's a great pattern for bass and crappie, and so I think it's Cyphert. I think is the way it's spelled, but it's the Seifert minnow. And
I'm writing that down as we speak.
Same way.
I'll look it up. It'll come up on a Google. Because Google will tell me